Okay, we're live now, Lasse.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Design System Friday, episode 2.
Yep.
I can
Let's
hear
do it.
myself. Can you check that? I can hear myself.
Okay, that one is weird. Yeah, I'm just gonna add Lasse back again.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear myself. You want to check your audio setup? Maybe something's wrong there.
Maybe it's like coming from you because it's looping.
Oh, it is. Okay. That's unplanned. So sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm just gonna check my audio. Can you try to say something or just go off and come back on?
Okay, test one, two, three.
Can you still hear yourself?
Yeah. Damn, what is it?
Yeah, it's not. I just confirmed it's not from me. Hello? Is it clear on your end?
It was on my end. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
All right.
and it was from your end because like I mean it's so weird.
It doesn't matter. Hey, we're here. Everything's okay. We can start, right?
Yeah, we can start again now. Let's go.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the madness with the looping. I mean, I'm not sure you caught that. Yeah, I think it was all okay for you. It was just like my headphones going crazy, but I resolved that. All right.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Design System Fridays. This is the second episode. Yeah. And let's do a first let's first do a quick recap
Okay.
on what the last episode was. We set out on an adventure to build the select component from scratch. So what we did is first we got into FigJam to figure out all of the states that we want to um, cover. For example, the idle state. We have the the focused one, etc., etc. So we got the states done. We have the blueprint. That is the FigJam is basically our blueprint of how we will implement this state machine. And then we set out to build the overall structure of the select component using just pure HTML and with some minor CSS intervention. Uh, we get everything done in Code Sandbox. We can share the link with you if you want to follow along. But what we've basically done is just the standard structure with no functionality, but we also added the data attributes and the area attributes, so it's working perfectly and it's accessible. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just got it loaded. Let me know when you're ready to go.
awesome. Yeah, well, on today's menu we're continuing off where we left off, and we're going to implement the functionality now. We're going to start implementing the actual heart and soul of the select component using Zag.js. So let's
Yeah.
let's actually go.
All right. Hey. Okay, so I'm pretty excited for today. I think we made a lot of progress last week. So I mean
Yeah.
today, I mean I see a question here that says, "Would this be a new component for Chakra UI?" Yes, it will be a new component for Chakra UI, and I hope that at least between today and the next stream, we should have it all done. Hopefully, and then we can just like behind the scenes, maybe not in a live stream, do all the finesse that's required to make it available. Okay. Hey, Isaac. Thanks for joining. We're doing pretty good. Laza, how
Yeah.
are you doing?
Doing great. Ecstatics. Very, very
Nice.
nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's get into it very quickly. I'm just gonna add my stream. Gonna bring up my screen again. Let's do this.
Nice.
All right. So here we've got like this is where we stopped last week. We had the basic JSX structure of the select component. I've got a ton of feedback just thinking through everything we've done last week because I like to self-reflect a lot, try to see what could be improved, right? So we're gonna just try to okay, nice one. Yeah. Is this good?
Just a little bit more if you'd like.
Okay, I'll do one more.
There we go, much better.
All right, let's confirm FigJam as well. Do I need to zoom in or is this good?
Sweet, this is okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, amazing. So we set up like the basic skeleton. We attached all the required like as far as just the attribute and properties go. We've added all those properties in, and now we're about to sort of go in, take a look at the state chart from last week and try to see how can we implement this state chart using Zag.js. Okay, so Lazo, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, awesome. So, one quick feedback from last week is here we in the app here we add a bunch of static quote unquote just for now variables that we created last week, and then we have the machine provided variables. These are variables that we expect to get from the state machine in the end. Right. So one of the things we did last week, Lazar, is we had this in line 73. We've got this area active descendant option, a property on the list box. Now this property is pretty okay, but from my research and also from a couple of testing between last week and this week, this property doesn't exactly play nicely with screen readers. So the other would probably have to use the other approach, which I mentioned last week, is roving tab index, right?
Mhm.
So roving tab index basically means that we would get rid of this one, but get rid of adding area active descendant, and basically, I mean, specify a tab index on that option, right? So we want to check if that option is actually the focus option, and then we're going to make the focus option uh, zero tab index, and the ones that are not focused -1 tab
Mhm.
index.
Yeah, so it jumps directly on that one, on the focused one, right?
Yeah, so it jumps directly on the focus one. This has a lot of benefits for sure because once that element is focusable, and you just like call the focus method, it will automatically at least scroll that element into view.
Yeah.
So that is a cheat code so you don't have to manually do like scrolling to view. But I think we may need that at some point.
Mhm.
All right. So without further ado, so right now the first tweak is we get rid of this of that attribute, and now let's get into the machine stuff.
Okay.
So I'll create a file here. Let's just call it. I don't like creating stuff at the root. So let's create a select directory here. Inside of the select directory, we'll create a file called the select.machine machine.ts file.
Okay.
Yep. And a couple of things I want to do here. So the first thing we'll do is let's grab from Zag.js core, which is the library we'll use to this library we're going to use to model this state charts that we've all sketched out here in Figma. One function that comes from here is create machine, right? So we're going to have some sort of machine that comes from create machine. We figure out what goes in there. But at first, let's export that one. Okay, so that's the first step. We grab the machine creator, the machine factory, call it create machine, and now we are ready to map it one to one. And so last week, we talked about the fact that a state machine has, I mean, three key elements. Well, there could be more, but I mean, on a basic level, three key elements. A state machine has a finite number of states. In our model last week, we talked about the fact that From a logic perspective, our select includes ideal state, focus state, and open state. Right. I mean, I mentioned last week that we could have potentially one more node in there, but let's just see how far we can go with these three state nodes and transitions. The second thing is a finite number of events. I mean, probably need to talk about that a bit more. But within each of these state nodes, all of the arrows you see in this diagram here points to a specific event being sent, and each event could cause a transition. Transition means you go from one state to another state, or you could potentially remain in the same state but just execute actions. Right, so here we've got like in the open state, in when we do arrow up and arrow down, we're basically only executing actions. As you can see, these arrows don't go anywhere, so it's basically some sort of like a self transition. You're still within the open state.
Yeah.
So let's try to sort of model this in here in create machine. So the three keys we're gonna have here, three properties we're gonna add to that. Create machine takes an object. One of that property is state. The other property is initial, which means initial state. And then the final one here, probably stop at this point here, is the context, which I talked about that earlier. It's just the extended piece of data that you need to track within the machine. Something like the highlighted ID or index of the option, something like the value of the select. All of those things are extended piece of state. Extended piece of data that you need to keep track of, and they are called context. So we give a machine an ideal select, and then we start to model out all the key pieces of this machine. Okay, so last I'm gonna hand it off to you now, and then all I'm going to do is basically we're going to sort of like review each state one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we've got three states. Okay, I'll probably do one example, and then we can actually like go through the rest together.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got the idle state. So let's start here with the idle state. And then we've got the focus state and open state. Actually, one thing we could do a lot better is sort of like to design or define what the state values are. So we've got idle, we've got focus, we've got open. Right. And then the other thing we could do here is define what the context could look like.
Yeah.
Last week, a few things that we talked about that could be in the context of data is the focused ID or the highlighted ID. I think highlighted was just too long, so we
Yeah.
shortened that to
Focus
focus.
ID.
And then selected value or value, whichever you prefer, and then disabled, right? So we had like a quick argument with disabled versus read only. It was like, okay, let's put it aside for now. We'll come back to that one. So let's just call this the selected value. That is going to be a string. We could say a string or null, depending on what we prefer there. And then we'll talk about the focus ID, which is also most likely going to be a string or null. Null means the absence of like the value for selected value, and null here means like the absence of a focus option, right? So that's it. So here in create machine, because we're using TypeScript, we can easily pass on. If you hover on the create machine, you can see that it's a generic object that requires you to pass in. The first option here we could improve the types a bit better, but here is the context, and then the second one is the state schema or the state basically. So we come in here and we pass in the context and the state.
Sweet. Yeah.
All right, so now we're pretty good to go, and now you get you get autocomplete here for the values idle, and then the context here requires us to specify the selected value. We start with null, and then the focus ID again we start with null. We'll look at how to maybe set a default value for this later on. I'll promote this guy to the top. and then we'll sort of just sketch out each state. We got open. I just put focus here. All right, so now we are good to go. We'll start again with the idle state. In the idle state, there's we've got an event called click that takes you to the open state. So how do we describe that in this object format here? So the way we do that again is what I'll do is for now I'll just close out this so we can have like this side by side. Is this still visible, Lazar?
Yeah, it's looking good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so in the idle state, we've got like a transition to the open state. So how do we describe this? We describe this by passing this on property on each state node. So every state node, you can provide this on property, which is a huge bucket of all the possible events that could potentially be triggered in that state node.
Mhm.
All right, so here we're just going to say on click. What we define here is basically like what we can talk about that. All right. So the next thing here in the ideal state, the transition from the ideal state is focus. Right. So when the focus event is sent, it goes to the focus state.
Yeah.
So I come in here and just do focus. Right. As far as the naming convention is concerned, it's up to you. I just like to use capitals for events. So here within this object, one of the two important properties you could pass in are the target and the actions. There's also like a property called guard, which is basically like the condition or the condition check
Mhm.
before that action or transition gets triggered. So every event describes the transition or exactly what should happen when that event is sent.
Mhm.
Right. So for the click event, what we want to say is the target of this click event is the open state,
Sweet.
and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
As far as the focus event as well, we say the target of that focus event is
Focus.
focus state. Now, if we add other actions we wanted to run in this state, we could do like actions and then pass in an array of actions, basically. But
Mhm.
we don't have those right now. So we just want to go from the ideal state to the open state, from the focus state, or the ideal state to the focus state, based on these different events.
Mhm.
So that's how we model that. Last, I'm going to hand it off to you. Let's do the focus state together.
Nice. All right. So we get inside, and then we provide the on property, right? So these are
Yes.
the basically the listeners.
Yes.
And looking at the chart, I can see that we have a click that goes to open. I can see that we have a blur that goes back to idle. So we'll do click, and we'll also do blur. Inside of the click, we'll set the target to be the open, yeah.
Yes.
And inside of the blur, we'll set the target to be idle. Nice.
Sweet. Yep. And then we've got one other event that is sort of like
Yeah,
a self
a
transition that
circular.
doesn't go
Yeah.
out. Right. So we've got key
So
press.
yes, that would be a key press. Maybe we can do a guard on here, right? So you can do this only if the key pressed, the key code is writable or like it's a
It's
digit or
printable. Yeah,
yeah,
printable
it's
character.
printable. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do a guard. We're not changing target here. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
is I mean we're
Okay.
not going to a different state. We're only executing certain actions.
Yeah.
So the action here, you probably want to define the action property.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put actions on there. Actions. And then the action we want to run is select matching
Matching option. There
option.
we go.
Yep, awesome. And then the guard we're going to put here, the guard for that action is basically you can define a guard property within this object that says
Within
is
the key
valid.
press.
Yeah, within the key press, exactly.
Okay, there we go.
And you can say you can put a string there that says is It's just a string that describes that says
Mhm.
is printable character, something like that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
So
cool.
that sort of reads like if it's a printable character, execute these actions.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more like that
Nice.
if else condition, but here it's just a single quote unquote
Mhm.
if condition. So we'll clean it up that way so it reads nicely like if this is the guard and then those are the actions. Right.
Exactly.
We
The
don't
condition and the execution then.
exactly the condition and the execution.
Mhm.
Awesome. So this key press event does not fire. It does not take us to a new state. It basically keeps us in the same state but execute actions. That is awesome. All right. So let's go into. Let's see. Did we cover all the nodes? Yeah. From here we've got blower,
Mhm.
and then here we've got click, and then I do to click covered.
There's a different one. Yeah, the space, enter,
Yeah.
and arrows.
Yeah. That one takes us to the open state.
Mhm.
All right. And I think this is where we have to sort of like define the subtle differences between them. Space, I think space and enter key should open it anyways. So let's include. I like to be a bit explicit when it comes to things like this. So
Mhm.
I would do a space key. I'm not sure if we should bundle them together into like a common name
Mhm.
instead of like having a space key and enter key having the exact same properties. Let's just call this the activation or the trigger key.
Mhm.
So we can
Yeah.
actually just like use that
I
instead.
actually like that. Yeah, because for example, space and enter will be they're like different keys, but they'll result in the same action, right?
Transition exactly.
Yeah, but the arrow up and arrow down will not actually. I mean, they will trigger the same function, but visually and like the end result is that something different happens, right? And when we go up and when we go down, it's like totally different directions. So we should probably handle them separately, while space and enter are basically combined under the trigger key. I actually like that.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's just include one called trigger key, and then the trigger key will take us to the open state.
Okay.
So we're gonna go to the open state, and we have to figure out what we want to do. So I press the trigger key. I think that is pretty much it, right? Just
Yeah.
open. That's it.
Just
All
open.
right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And then we have the arrow up.
Yeah, and then we've got the arrow up key. So that one.
Still will be open, right? But we should do something.
Yeah, we'll figure out what we want to do. But let's just
Yeah.
add them both quickly.
Do something. We'll just like have it
Yeah,
here
with an
and
empty.
also, yeah. And we will do arrow down. There we go.
Nice. Again, just like last week, one of the things we did was to like reduce the press
Yeah.
by just having like arrow down
Except
and
this, right?
arrow up. Yeah, except that one.
Yeah, because it'll be just key.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we've got that one covered. Now let's figure out what we want to do
Hey,
when it's
before
focused. Go
before
ahead.
we go, Riyadh has a question. Does create machine actually cause it to listen for key presses?
Oh no, it doesn't actually. We're just describing the logic here. I mean, shortly afterwards, we're gonna create the implementation that actually connects and binds the DOM events correctly. So here is just a plain description of the diagram that we have here. And the next one, you're gonna see us actually attach event listeners or sort of attach properties to the DOM elements to listen and grab those, send those to the machine.
Awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's
so
there's like
just
two
stick with
parts.
us. Yeah, there are two parts. All right. So describing the logic and then writing the implementations. Those are like the
Yeah.
two key parts, right?
Awesome.
All right. So I think one of the things we used as a reference the last time was the carbon. I think it was the carbon design system. I think.
Yeah.
Uh, so so here, if I scroll down, I've got this drop down here. So I've got this drop down is currently focused. If I press the down key, it opens and selects the first item. Focuses the first item. If I press the up key, it opens and focuses the last item. So that actually gives us the actions we want to run, Lazar.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just gonna here in the state chart. I'm just gonna split these two up. Grab this, cut them out. Split them apart, and I think I should even split this apart as well. So we actually have that like the do focus last item option maybe, and
Option. Yeah.
then focus first option. Awesome. All right, so let's
Nice.
translate those into the machine now. Oh, you done that, sweet. Okay, cool. All right, so that one is done now. The next thing we want to figure out now is the open state. The open state has got quite a couple. All right, in the open state, do you want to take this on, Lazar?
Yeah, sure.
All right,
Okay,
so in
so
the open
first we got,
state, go
yeah,
ahead.
we got the escape and the trigger key as well. Right, so let's do the trigger key first. Trigger key. The target is going to be focused. We'll go back to the focused, but there's also actions. And we want to do select focused option.
Yep.
And basically transitioning back to the focus state, we'll just hide the drop down.
Exactly.
We'll just say the menu. Okay, nice. There's the trigger key. Then we have the escape key. We should keep this as an escape key, right?
Yeah, escape key.
Yeah. We'll just go back to the focused. So we're not doing any actions. We'll just like, no. Go back to the focused. I don't want to select anything. We're all good. Nice. Then we have then we have the blur, for example. Let's do the blur because it's easier. The target is going to be the idle, and that's it, right? We're going back to the idle. Blur means basically clicking away, like clicking on something else, right? So we're going back to the idle. We're
Yeah,
not doing anything.
there's actually like a special case of blur though that we want to think about.
Okay.
And I mean, one of that case is, I mean, there's a blur where you just click outside, right? So if I come here and I open this and I click outside, completely okay. I've blurred that component. You can go back to the focus state, or you can even just go to the idle state. I think it's the idle state it goes into, right? Yeah, it goes to the idle state. Like so, but then there's the other one where like I'm currently navigating by sort of using the up and down keys in here, and I hit the tab key. So what we do in this scenario, we could just say like, I mean, regardless, anyways, just blur and just don't do anything. But I think that at some point we want to consider something where like a behavior or a mode where pressing the tab key selects that value and also blurs. Because the reason I say this is this seems to be like an interesting API even from React Select itself. If I go all the way to props, and again, if we are designing a machine for sure, we want to build something that like, because it's a machine, it should probably be able to do quite a few things, but we'll start simple. I think this is tab select value. Yeah. So this is currently a mode that's available in React Select. Whether we implement this or not is completely up to us. But
Yeah.
The goal here is like press the tab key, selects the currently focused option. So that's a different type of blur we probably want to come back to, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
But let's just skip that for now. In the diagram, I'll do something like tab key, and we'll just do select focused option. So it's kind of like just from a diagram perspective, at least, I'll just include that. I'll just include that one right there. So we've got that at least. Color looks weird. Set it to black. All right, so I'm not sure if you want to implement it now, but we're completely okay. But
Mhm.
here, if we wanted to activate that behavior, if you want that behavior to be completely optional, we can say if, I mean, we can say if tab select, I think I just do like select on tab. Um,
Mhm.
so it's more like if select on tab, then we want to actually do that action.
Yeah.
That is sort of like the key idea there.
Right. Like dip into the context, obtain the value. If the value is true, then we'll basically do that. That's the guard, right?
Yeah, that's exactly that's the guard.
Yeah.
But
Otherwise,
regardless, yeah, go ahead.
mhm. Otherwise the transition is still going to happen, right?
The transition is still gonna happen regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually like a good question. For example, we have the, let's say, we have the key press up top,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have a guard, we have an actions, but we don't have a target right here. What if we
Yes.
had a target and the guard returned false? I know that the action is not gonna like not none of the actions are gonna get executed. But what about the target? Is
Yeah,
the
nothing is going to get executed actually.
yeah
So the transition and the actions, nothing. So the guard basically guards that entire
mm-hmm,
transition definition. So it says if that evaluates to false on, I mean, in any case,
yeah
whether it's targets or actions, that's not going to fire anything at all. The machine just acts dumb.
yeah? And what if? How do we do that instead? For example, we want to transition it, but we don't want to execute the action. Is it like should we put it inside of the action itself without any guards so that the transition happens?
Yeah, that's sort of like the old in my mind. That's the old way that I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just put a bunch of if conditions in there, but you don't want to stuff the actions. You want the actions to be as lightweight as possible. They
Mm-hmm.
need to do just like a very specific amount of work without doing
Yeah,
any if check from the surroundings, if possible.
yeah. Keep them pure, basically. Yeah.
Keep them pure. So let's actually try to implement the tab key, if that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So let's just put a tab key here for now for illustration purposes. So we've
Okay.
got the target is idle, and then the actions is select focus option, and then we put um, a guard here. Yep. Select on tab. Yep. That's gonna
Yeah.
be our guard. So the question then becomes like when this evaluates to false, what do we do? Because this basically reads as if select on tab, go to the idle state and execute these actions. So the way to solve this is basically switching this from an object format to an array of objects. So
Okay.
that gives you the ability to do the if else all the way till it actually matches like if till it sees the first true condition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Nice.
exactly what the machine would do. So here we've got that first one, and then you can add a second one there that just does the target idle. So that would be a simple if else statement there.
This is pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Right. So that's basically how I'd implement that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're okay. So let's go continue here in the open state implement. Let's just quickly do this
Yeah.
transitions here.
We got the arrow up. The target is we're not gonna do any target. Sorry. Yeah, it's a circular one. We want to do some actions, and that's going to be the set focused option. Same as the down. Wait a minute.
I think that should
Focus
be
down.
like this is not, I mean this should be like focus next
Next.
option
Yeah.
and previous option. So we should actually split this up
Yeah.
completely.
So
So do
focus
done.
up. Sorry, up is the previous.
Up is
Right,
the
we're
previous.
top to bottom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Previous. Next option. There we go. No guards. In this case, we just wanna select some stuff. Then we have a key
Yeah, no
press.
guards. Yeah.
And we have a key press. The key press is again circular, but it does something. That is the focus matching option. And we also have a guard.
Yeah, if it's a printable character.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll just steal it from where we actually defined it. is printable character. There we are. We'll do the guard first and then put the action. And then we have the pointer event. And that is like mouse enter, mouse leave. We want to do focus option. The one that we're
Yeah. I think this should be like pointer enter.
So we're not split them, right?
Yeah, no, we don't. That's all we actually need.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need anything else.
Right, we only have one selected option, so okay.
Okay, all right. So I think that actually covers most of these.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's do some. Let's do like a quick magic now. So now that we've sort of like described. We've described the logic of this component. The next thing is to go into the implementation of this component. But before we do that, let's take a look at this. It's an awesome. I mean, I probably won't feel too good if I don't do this. So if I go to Stately AI Viz, so I mean, even though we're using like ZACJS, there's a lot of parallels with Stately AI's visualization tools. So at least you can actually see this in action in here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll just copy out. I'll copy out the entire configuration that we just created.
So this answers Dumbo's question.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm just gonna bring in that entire configuration. I think Sadly uses cond for now.
Condition, yeah.
To represent condition. I don't know if it's called like machine equals to that. Yeah, so I hit to save, I hit Control Command S, and now we've got sort of like I'm just gonna expand this and zoom in a bit. Let's do this, zoom in. All right, here we go. So here is basically the visualization of that component. And the cool thing I think I really love about this is the fact that it's completely interactive. So you can stay here now and basically play with the logic of that component visually. FigJam is awesome and great for just like static sketching out the idea. But then when you actually want to actually interact and see how that logic works, it's super awesome. So here you can see that if we send a click event, it takes us to the open state. If we do pointer enter, we're still in the same state for sure. But if we blur, we go back to the idle state. If we click, we're open, we hit the escape key, we're focused, and then if we blur, or even if we're focused and we click, we go back to the open state. So that just gives you an idea of it feels like you're building the brain of that component.
Yeah.
Right. And this is exactly the brain of this select component. And the really awesome part of this is like you only have to model this once, and you use this pretty much everywhere possible that you need a select component.
Exactly. Yeah. This is awesome, by the way. It's like a good way to also test out if your machine is like complete and you don't have any, issues with it before you actually dive into implementing everything.
Exactly. So if I were working within a team structure, so this is where I basically stop before going into the implementation. I stop at this point and I go share and ask for feedback for this setup. So take a look at the machine, play with it, let me know what you think about it. And then here is like the moment we agree that this is the brain of the component that we want to implement now, then we go into the implementation.
Awesome.
All right, so I've shown you guys. I use this a lot, by the way, when modeling components. So it just helps me actually make sure that Figma is great. I can sketch it out pretty quickly, or TLDraw, or XColorDraw. But when it gets to it, I really want to simulate that logic to be sure I have all the edge cases covered. All right, so let's just kind of stop here. I think one of the things that we did, I probably didn't mention here, is we're assuming an initial state of idle. So later on, we'll go into like, what if the initial state is not idle? What if I want it to be open by default? Or what if I want to select an option by default? We're going to get into that.
So there's like we need to define some parameters that could potentially override the starting behavior, right? The starting
Exactly.
states.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll get into that pretty shortly. The next thing I want to quickly talk about here is let's just call this the. So when we open up the rendered, so I think we're done with FigJam now, so we can sort of tell FigJam goodbye for now, and sort of like stay within Code Sandbox all the way. I know one of the things we talked about is, I mean, the rendered value of the input here. We said at some point it will be the placeholder. I think we had the logic here. Exactly. So you see this logic right here.
Yeah.
At some point, it will be the placeholder, and also at some point, it will be the selected options label. So that makes me feel like it's actually something we need to keep track of within the machine, because the goal of this is we want to avoid any of all these like conditions
Yeah.
as much as possible within the rendering layer. So we want to move as many things to the logic layer as much as we can. So the first thing I'll do is let's assume this is structure we're going to deal with label, option, label, and value. I'll move this over to the machine to say that that is my type of the option. And instead of doing like the selected value, we could do the selected option.
Okay.
Right. And here we could just like point to the entire like option string. Just bear with me for now. So here we go like optional null unselected, switch this over to selected option. And the next thing we want to do here is copy out this logic like so. And bring it in. We're going to bring it in at some point. I'll put it within a comment for now. We'll create what I call a computed property. We can call this rendered. Oh, let's just call it rendered value. I'm not sure. Let's just call this rendered value. This would be a string.
Okay.
Right. So we can call this. I'm not sure I want to call it selected. I just want to give it as a generic name, rendered value. So what this means now is we can define a computed property in the machine that allows you just like, I mean, hook into that to just like use it directly within the app.
Yeah.
So we'll come here and define a computed property. This will probably be like the only one. Rendered value will be available there. And rendered value here gives us access to the context.
Nice.
And we basically return this expression that we've got here.
Yeah, we're gonna use the context to actually get to it, right?
Yeah, we're going to use the context to grab that one. We
Nice.
probably should include a placeholder as well in the context. So here we'll do placeholder as a string.
Yeah, that was a required one.
Default placeholder. Let's keep it like that for now. All right. So there you go. So now we've got this computed context. So these two guys basically belong together. This one is static and the other one is computed.
Nice. Yeah. So computed basically recalculates everything when we have a change in the context, right?
Exactly.
Sweet.
So this way we have like most of the things like, so in my mind the way I think about it is like everything I need in my render layer as far as like UI is concerned, like I want to try to think about it if it's something I need to provide from the machine or not. I mean, you could argue that this can just be computed. I mean, you can just have that directly within the app, and that is completely true. So it's just a matter of preference for me here. All right, cool. So let's now go into we could go into the implementation, but I'm gonna sort of stop here for now. Let's go into the rendering layer.
Okay.
Which is the UI right here. So the first thing we're going to do, I'll hand it off to you, Lazar, is let's import use machine from Zag.js React.
Okay.
So everything we did so far was to design the machine using create machine. That create machine function is framework agnostic. But now we want to try to bind this, to the React, to sort of like to the React like state lifecycle and
Yeah.
functionalities. So we grab
We
the
all,
select machine.
yeah, we also want to get the machine. Is that a default? No, it's machine. Okay.
Yeah, it's just called machine for now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do something equals use machine. And it requires a machine. We already have the machine. We are importing it. There we go. And we get some stuff. It's an array. We get
Yeah.
the state.
And let's just go that send.
Send. Yeah. This
Right,
will be the trigger, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna explain what that does right now. So the two things that come from here basically state and send. The first one, so this entire expression just means that take the framework agnostic JavaScript logic we just wrote, and subscribe that to the React lifecycle. So you can imagine there's some use effects, there's some synchronization going on between the machine and React state, basically. And in the end, what that gives you is just like a reducer in React. If you had use reducer, the key things that you need is the state and a function to dispatch an event. So here we've got state, which is a state representation of the machine, and then send is the function to dispatch events. So all of those events that we mapped out earlier here, like key press, arrow up, arrow down, that send function is what we're going to use to send them to the machine, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is awesome. So one of the things, the other thing I like to do here when I'm working is I just like to see a visual representation of the state. So what I'm going to do here is I'll create a pre-tag here, and I'll do like a quick JSON stringify of, let's do the maybe state can actually be very verbose. So I'm just going to pick out. I'm going to pick out properties that I want to see. Otherwise, it gets pretty big. All right. So I'm going to also pick out the context, so we can actually see what that context looks like.
Nice.
All right. And obviously, just for styling purposes, let's switch over to CSS. And
just put it on the right, like get it out of the way.
I'll call it console. Yeah, let's get it out of the way and just put it on the right, exactly.
Console, okay.
So that is our custom console.
So we can like float it.
Yep.
There we go. I don't know, we can set the background to black and set the color to white. Is that gonna work? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to reduce the font size, maybe add some padding.
Yeah. Say 12 pixels. There we go.
Reduce the font size.
Font family is gonna be mono.
Monospace. I think it's monospace.
Mono space, yeah. There we go. Nice.
Yeah.
And font size. How much are we talking? 14?
That's probably big. Let's do 12. Say 12. Right. So this I mean, to be honest, I think the black color is sort of like hurting my eyes here. So maybe we just like stick to a gray background instead.
Okay. Let's pick something out. Can we pick something out? No, we can't. Oh, wait a minute. We actually can. I just hover on this. I think I saw like a color. All right, doesn't matter. Let's do.
Yeah, we can do the exact same thing as what we had here before. All right. Yeah, 444. We can just do this one, right? Like so. Like what we had here before. Remove color white, or maybe just like use something else. I mean, I'm not sure. We just source for colors. Yeah.
This is good.
That looks like it. So let's sort of like see now what we have here. So here we see what we are seeing in AppTSX is basically a visual representation of the current value of the state, which means like the current state we're in. And then the context means like, I mean, all of the contextual data we want to track. So this is how we basically start to debug the machine and make sure everything works correctly.
Nice.
All right, so let's take a look at like everything we have here and see like how can we. I mean, so we haven't written implementations. We've just described the logic, and we're just trying to connect that logic to UI before we start writing any piece of implementation.
Yeah.
All right, so here we have placeholder. All right, so let's sort
Yeah,
of
we
like
want to
get
use
rid
the
of
one.
this.
We want to
We're
use
gonna
the
use
one
the
from
one
our machine, right?
exactly. So
Yeah.
we're just gonna replace this with state.context.placeholder. Right.
Ooh.
Oops. So that would be a placeholder. As far as invalid goes, we're gonna maybe like figure this one out. We could add that to context just for context purposes. Anyways, it doesn't mean we have to use that in machine. But let's keep that one. So how do we know that the machine is open?
If the
Right. We've got
state,
3 states. We've got idle, open, focus. The state that represent open is
is
this
the
open
open.
state,
Yeah.
basically. So we come here and we do state that matches open. State that matches is where you actually like query for the state the machine is currently in. So here we're just saying, hey, check for me if the state is currently open. That means it's actually open. So this way, I mean, we're not. I mean, even though it's a boolean, it's open. That is actually controlled by a state machine, not some boolean state that you've got in there. So disabled, I think, did we have that in context? I don't think we do. So I'm just going to, we could maybe just like come to the machine and just like do disabled boolean. I think we also saw like invalid as well. This one could be optional, right? It doesn't have to be defined at all. All right. So here now we can basically just like do this invalid.
Yeah.
And here we could do state the context the disabled. All right, so we sorted out almost of this. We're left with 2. How do we know the currently focused option?
Don't we have it from the context as well?
We've got the focused ID.
Okay.
Right. So the question then is like, how do you figure out the focus option from that ID? So let's keep that one. Let's just keep this one aside. I'll come there. So we've got selected option. Selected option. This is already coming from the machine.
Yeah.
As well.
Nice.
Okay. So we forgot to probably undo a case where that value is null. So you see here it says cannot read property null. So basically have to check this area selected and just like do that and do the same here.
Below, yeah.
All right. And then here within the span, we created a completed property, if you remember.
Yeah, the render.
So, yeah, I think it's good. We can probably change, give that a much better name. So we come here and just put the default placeholder to select maybe. So that actually sort of like wins in this case.
Nice.
Okay. So there we go. I think we have everything we need now. All right, so let's just start to do like some pretty basic implementations right now. Let's do the basic. So if we look at the machine now, we're currently in the idle state. So let's work our way back to. Let's look. Okay, let me just zoom in. Reset. Zoom in again. Use the AND to sort of like grab things here. Let's walk away from the idle state. So let's just do the click. If I click on the trigger, I want to open up that select.
Yeah.
So here is where we now start to think about the implementation. How do we implement that within the machine?
Mhm.
So the first thing we see here is we've got a button here, so we can attach the onClick event listener to that machine. So you
Okay.
can do that first, Lazarus.
We have the onClick here. We want to use the send to
Yeah,
send the machine
the click event. Exactly.
to
I think it's
click.
click all
Yeah.
caps. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so so that is it's interesting because that's all we have to do. Again, this one is just like a little bit of a nitpick. I like to just keep them this way in case I need to do more stuff
Mhm.
in there. So this is sort of like I mean it's interesting because now if we take a look at what we've got here in the machine, you see that
Nice.
we can actually click that button to open it in there, but you can also see that the value is now open. All right.
Nice.
So one thing we can do in this stage here in the visualization, I'll just include the event.
Mhm.
So this helps us to see the event that was actually sent to the machine. So you see here there's event type. Now you see that the click event was sent and it's now open.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right. So the next thing now is if you notice that like clicking, well, I mean the open state and I just sent click, but it's not going back to the idle state.
Yeah. We should do
So,
that. I think we were
so
missing that
in
transition.
the open state, yeah, we don't have a click.
Yeah.
I don't think we miss it here. No, I think we did actually. So if I click,
From idle we go to open. Yeah. But clicking.
oops, no, I don't want to. Let me click visualize again. I think there's just a bug there. So here I'm sending click. All right, I think there's actually like a bug. Okay, here, okay, I have to just like skip that one. So let's reset this again. Click.
Mhm.
There is no way to go back to
To the
that
idle.
state.
Yeah.
I have to. I mean, we don't even have a click event to sort of go back. I think when we click again, at least let's be in the focus state at best, not the idle state,
Mhm.
because we're kind of still focused on that, anyways. So we need to include that somewhere in our machine. So let's do that.
Okay. So let's set it as the first one. When we actually click and we're in the open state, we want to go to the focused state. We don't want to do anything like no selection, no actions, etc. Just go to the focused state.
Yeah, nice. So if you check this again now, we see that like we can click,
Hey, nice.
and I've got like at least the basic functionality there. Working
Yeah.
is opening and it's closing. Maybe we should close up this distance so it feels like it's select. That so it feels so weird.
Yeah. Where are we? There's the positioner. There's the trigger. We have some padding on it. Can you like open it and if we like remove this padding, is the padding? No, it's
No, that's just
from
this
the
pattern. I
it's
think
something else.
yeah, it's something else. I wonder what we use to style that. So if I just inspect the state of the DOM
Yeah.
quickly, I see here that okay, so here is the list box. Here is the positioner. It's got some like
It's the list actually. The list box has the default. It
margin.
has the default. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just clean out that default and just do.
Yeah. Should we like zero it or leave just a little bit space?
You
Zero
leave a
it.
little bit of space. Yeah,
Little
just
bit
a
of
little
space.
bit of
Okay.
space. Yeah.
So I'll reset everything and I'll just do margin top because we only want to do the top one. I don't know. Let's say 2 pixels. Is that
Maybe four.
maybe
Four is
4?
probably fine. Yes.
Be more generous than this. There we go.
All right, cool. So here we see here that like, it kind of starts to feel like a select
Mhm.
component now, and
we're missing the blur now, right?
Yeah, we're missing the blur now when we go that, but I mean we still have quite a bit to do for sure.
Yeah.
So let's try to let's try to see like what we can do. So let's start with taking care of. I'd like to sort of do keyboard interactions first.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm here and I press the tab key to focus on the select, I hit enter, it opens up. Now let's start with like focus management here. Like when this label is, I mean, is open,
Mm-hmm.
when the select is open, we actually want to move focus into that list box.
Yeah.
Like we want to move focus into that option directly.
Mm-hmm.
So the question there becomes like, I mean, we need to do that when we immediately we open up that select.
Let's see. We have the area has pop up here. When we actually open the list right here, we set the tab index, but that's data focused. If the value is, that's not really what we want. I'm not sure, like, how do we move? Should we use, like, we don't want to
We
use
need to.
refs, right?
We would no, we're not going to use refs for sure.
Yeah.
We'll figure out what exactly we need to do. I mean, in there, but let's sort of keep track of the focus option in the machine, right?
Yeah,
Because I think
we
that's
still have it at
actually
2.
a crucial one. Actually, we see how these two here.
Yeah. Do we have that?
So
We have that, right?
we don't have that actually.
We don't.
Right
We
now,
don't have.
right now it's a string. But in my mind, when it comes to select, I try to think about a select not just as a string, but as an object of properties. Because that way you can render custom elements when the focus changes. Or like if you imagine if you like, I mean, as I'm sort of changing focus here, imagine if you wanted to show something else along this UI or on the side.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to authoring components like this, we have to think beyond just the simple use case. Just as I thought about like the fact that the selected option should sort of represent an object. I mean, instead of representing like a single string, even though the single string is the easiest one, but we have to think about like what if it's not a string? What if I wanted to get into the multi-select route, or even if I just wanted to render a custom element here?
Yeah.
So let's say it's an avatar, a list of users I'm trying to select, and I select a specific one, and I want to
Yeah.
see what that looks like.
Or like you're trying to pick out colors from a list and you want to render like a color box or a color circle, etc. It's
Yeah,
custom, right? It's
exactly.
not
It's
just
custom.
text. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just text. So I want to be able to pass some information between when the click happened and when that gets rendered all the way in there, so the user can actually figure out what they want to render in that scenario. But here, that's for now. Let's see. Do we want to keep track of the object? Let's start with the string, and then we'll gradually move our way to the object.
Okay.
All right. So focused ID. Oh, we have that already, which is awesome. Okay, Lazarus. So the first thing we want to do is when we open up the select, we actually want to move focus, because right now the focus is currently on
the select.
on the select. So we actually want to
trigger,
move that focus into there.
Okay, so for example, if no elements are selected, we want to move the focus to the first option. But if there is a selected option, we want to move the focus to that one instead, right?
Yeah, say that again.
If there's like a selected option, let's say we've selected option number 3.
Yes.
We're in the idle state, right? We click on the trigger.
Yes.
We want to move the focus to the third option because that's the selected one. But in case it doesn't exist, we default to the first one.
We default to the first one, or we default to the container. And
or I mean,
those are two valid arguments.
Why would we want to go to the container, for example?
Yeah, because it's just a click, right? A click just means open it up, right? Yeah. Opening it up doesn't mean like open it up and select.
And select it,
Yeah, because there's no intent behind that action. But if the action was arrow down or arrow up, Now you
Then
can
we
say,
actually
okay,
select. Yeah.
then we can actually try to select, because that intent means they want to do some navigation at least.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that is how we see. So let's just see what we can do here in the open state. Now, one property we can include here is entry,
Okay.
which means when we enter into the state, we want to execute some actions. So this is sort of like you list out
Nice.
all the actions you want to run when you get into the state.
So basically, the actions array is like the stuff that happens when we exit from this state, and these are
When
the
we, I think it's more like when we actually like it's sort of like a side effect of calling that trigger
a
key.
side effect.
So
Yeah.
when you call that trigger key, the transition
Mm-hmm.
happens, which goes to the target, but also the side effect of the actions happen at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see.
So here we can do. Let's just call this set initial focus.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We'll figure out what this means. We're going to interpret this shortly. So when we open that, we want to set the initial focus. I think we should actually get into the implementation to save time, since we're
Mm-hmm.
running out of time. So if I collapse create machine, we see here that it takes two arguments. The
Okay.
first one here is sort of like the signature or the brain of that machine. The second one is like the actual like implementation. Because so far we were just using strings, and like, I mean, it might feel weird for someone to see that like the select is opening and closing with just strings.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's a lot more you have to do beyond, like, we've got select matching option, focus last option. I mean, we need to write implementations for those. The machine cannot figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
So here we've got the implementations for the actions, implementations for the guards.
Nice.
So now we can then like come here to start writing out the implementation. So let's start with set initial focus.
Mm-hmm.
Every action takes two key properties. The context, I can just put full spelling, an event. Now I'll explain what this event means here. Event basically maps one-to-one with what was sent at this point.
Yeah.
All right, so this means you're saying an event type of click.
Yeah. So it's
Right,
gonna
and
be
there
a
are
string.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are two ways to write this. I mean, you could write this as like send click, or you could also write this as send and be explicit on the type
Okay.
click. Right, so those two mean exactly the same thing.
But the second part actually leaves us room
The second
for
one leaves
sending
us
some
wrong.
additional data, right?
Exactly.
Nice.
So now we can actually do some extra payloads or some extra like properties like ID and stuff like
Nice.
that. We can use that. So you see us doing this like all like, I mean, throughout like
Yeah.
this. So just as a convention, let's stick to always using objects.
Yeah.
All right. So now that is actually what is contained in the event, and context refers to the context here, obviously.
Yeah.
So when
Our
it comes to
database.
setting, when it comes to setting the initial focus, what we want to do here is to figure out like how do we grab a reference to, um, how do we grab a reference to the nodes so we can actually focus on them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it actually gets like it gets pretty interesting. Now we've got like the ID of the focused item. I think we've also got here. I think one thing we want to take from the option here is also an ID,
Mm-hmm.
because we need these three pieces of information.
Yeah.
For I mean, the ID will give us the DOM node, the ID reference to that DOM node, so we could easily do something like get
Yeah.
element
Get
by
elements.
ID.
Yeah.
Remember, we're designing a framework agnostic machine here, so we don't want to go into refs with
Yeah.
React and put a ref into the machine and do all that magic. We could easily do that if this was a React only implementation, but that's not the case
Yeah.
here. So we're gonna stick heavily with just like pure DOM methods.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here the idea we want to model here is if there is a focused ID, focus on that option, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of this logic is mostly
The
if there is no
container.
focus, it's like focus the container.
What was
Now we
the
could,
ID?
yeah, we're gonna figure out the ID lives in the context.
No, about the container was just the list box, right? We're looking for the list box, not the positioner, or we're looking for the
Yeah, the list
positioner.
box.
The list
The list
box.
box
Okay.
actually, yeah. Positioner is just a, it's just like I call it
Yeah.
just an accessory for positioning
Mm-hmm.
there. So I mean, let's just write this here for now. There's a high chance that the moment I start to smell if and else, there's something I could do in my machine to sort of split that out.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just use this. Let's just use it for now. So the key idea here is we've got the ID of the focus option, right? So that is context.focus ID,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I mean, so we've got that ID there. I think you can just like skip that. So the goal now is if we've got the focus, we can sort of grab the focused element by doing a document get element by ID of that context.focused ID. So I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, to make this work, I'll just do this. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
this could potentially be null. So we have to sort of like handle that use case. Because we know that the focus ID isn't isn't always there, but in this scenario, it should always be there. I mean, when it's open, well, it may not actually be there. So what we should do is like focus. If there's a focus ID, we want to
Yeah.
actually do that. Else, else we can grab a reference to the list box
Yeah.
element. I think we gave that an ID of list box, right?
Yeah. List box. Yeah.
All right, I can give you more tips on how to manage this later on, so you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to like add code this into the element. But for the sake of this demo, we'll stick to this. So here we can basically just do like we can grab that focus element and call the focus method
Mm-hmm.
on that element. And same here as well. We can grab the list box element and do that focus.
Okay.
Now, it's already clear and obvious that these are two different branches that could potentially be called. All right. So, I mean, we could consider maybe moving them out as separate stuff, but I don't want to increase the number of concepts that needs to be learned
Mm-hmm.
here. So let's just keep this here into the action. So we've got set initial focus, and that's it. So the initial focus runs there. So if you come here now and do like a quick test, you'll see that like I mean, I'm not sure if this actually even gets run right now. So let's check. We're expecting it to actually focus on the list box. All right. So I would just call this focus. Just to actually confirm that I think we've got an error somewhere, but
Yeah.
that's
That's from the
okay.
carrots. Yeah. We
So
actually
if we
fixed
do
that.
this, you can see that it actually moved focus in here.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is because I think that this one is powered by the attribute. Let's check this CSS again. Where's the trigger? Yeah, we have focus. So if it's actually focused, we see the tail. So that means the focus was not moved. So one interesting technique I like to do in general is to defer focusing on elements to the next tick, which is after most of the things are done. Then we actually want to do that work
Mm-hmm.
there. So when the browser does most of the current tasks, I mean in the queue, then just do this. There are two ways to do that. If you want to defer focusing, you could do like a set timeout and sort of like move that focus in there.
Okay.
So if we try that and just do that focus afterwards, now we should see. I mean, now we should see that element actually move focus into the list box.
It kind of did, but we're not actually seeing the teal. I could see the teal getting moved.
Yeah, we're not seeing the tail because in our CSS we only added that to. Let's
Oh,
make
it's a
this
trigger
selector.
actually. Yeah.
Let's make this selector generic to anything we
Yeah.
focus on, right?
Okay.
So I always maybe just do a nice outline offset.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. So here you can see that like
There
that
we
focus
go.
actually moved between the trigger and the list box.
Nice.
So that's how we just do that deferring of focus and it just works correctly. Okay. To clean this up, I mean, what we could easily do, obviously, is to just grab like the HTML element,
Mm-hmm.
just assign those in each of the steps, and just like do the focus as the last thing
Yeah.
in there. So here we can just reassign. You can do that. It's fine.
What if we like
Awesome.
even do a ternary in this case? Because I think we can do this if it's this. Otherwise, just get me the list box.
Yeah, that's it. You're the master of refactoring, So.
Yeah.
So yeah, that works actually. So here we've got like all of that. We have it all working now, and it works as expected, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing we want to do now is if we click on that to open it, and we sort of like press the arrow keys.
Mm-hmm.
I would I would love to at least be able to navigate through all these options.
Yeah. So we're in the
So
open and we're gonna be doing the key press event, but only do the arrow up and arrow down.
yes, so we connect our way. So typically here is just pick the flow you want to design until you've covered all of the entire transition. So it's
Yeah.
not it's really hard to just do all of them at once. Just pick a specific flow and I mean get it all working. So here we are in open state, we've got arrow up and arrow down. I think these are actions like focus next option, focus previous option. So let's just implement those.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we make like the ID of our options a bit more, a bit more specific? Because right now we only have value as the ID.
Oh no, it should whatever we design should be completely independent of that. So I mean, whatever format you choose to use, we could. I mean, we could definitely do that for
So
sure.
it's not going to, we're not gonna need the like a specific format of the IDs in this case. For example, focus on the next. I thought like give
Oh
me the
no, we're not
current and then
doing.
like get on to the next. And how do we find the next? That's what I was like
Yeah,
thinking about.
yeah. So let's think about that together. So I think now that you sort of like done this, my brain is just ticking to just like do that directly.
Yeah.
So, so I just could not help that one. So here we've got like focus next option. How do we get the next one? How do we also get the previous one?
Yeah.
So as far as even if we just implement this, I think it's called previous, right?
Yeah,
Previous.
it's like full previous.
Okay, nice. All right, so this is where like the DOM and I'd say like the DOM methods come in. I mean, we could if you had like a selector that is sort of virtualized. I mean, it's a different conversation entirely. But the idea here is just assume this is not virtualized.
Yeah.
I mean, in any way, so it's just plain there in the DOM. So let's do to get like the next option. We basically have the current. We've got like the current one. So we do like sort of like the let me just call it current.
Yeah.
That is the context dot focus ID. Right. Whether current exists or not is a separate conversation. So let's just grab this next ID. Just assign that to a string. All right. So the question here is, how do we get the first item? How do we get the first option ID? Well, we've got this. We could easily do grab the list box element,
and just get the first child.
and do a get by ID of that list box. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd love to maybe wrap this into utility so you don't have to do that every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could get the first child.
Yeah.
But we're assuming that the first child would always be an option.
Yeah.
Remember, there's a use case of a select where there's an input to filter the options, and then we've got the
Yeah.
options below.
Or
So
like a group header.
also
You
like
can
group
have
header.
groups as
So
well. Yeah.
exactly. So this is a flaky or error prone implementation here. So what we want to do, maybe we implement previous and next, and we call it a day. Next week
Yeah.
we finish this up. All right. So what we want to do here now is we probably want to do like a query selector,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to query for all the options.
Yeah.
So this is a bit more. This is less error prone because you're being specific on what you're looking for.
Yeah. Like jump to the first option. I don't care how many stuff there are before it.
Yeah, I don't
Like
care how nested or whether it's
yeah.
wrapped in a span or stuff like. Just get me the first one
Yeah.
that matches
Do
that.
what you
Right?
will. Give me the first option. Yeah.
Exactly, and this is cool because I could decide to change that like query to say like get me an option that is not disabled, right?
Yeah.
So I could decide to change this to say like not disabled. So this way I'm actually getting the first enabled option.
Sweet. Yeah. The first focusable one.
Yeah,
First
exactly.
selectable one. Yeah.
So simplicity's sake for now, let's just keep it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we've got access to the element. So if that element exists,
Mm-hmm.
we've got the ID of that element easily.
Wait.
First option element ID.
Query selector is gonna return a single element, right?
Yep,
Yeah. Query selector all is gonna return all of them. Okay, got it, got
all of
it.
them exactly. So there we have. So there we have it. So this is actually the ID of the next one. So that's what we. This is actually the first ID,
Yeah.
right? So we could easily say that if we don't have a current one, this entire process is just to grab the first ID.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can actually just like you set that to be the first ID, right?
Yeah.
So we could say all of this logic that we're trying to do here is if there is no current ID, that's why we're trying to do all this magic.
If there is or
Uh,
not.
if there's not actually.
Yeah.
All right, and with this one, what we want to do now is assuming that we've got an ID, the focus ID, we basically just want to get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we just get element by ID of that current ID, right?
Yeah.
In this case, we actually don't need. We then need to get like the next element, right? So we want to do the next thing. So this is where we do. This is where the second dude comes in, which is create selector all.
Okay.
Right, so you got here like a collection or a node list of elements.
Mm-hmm.
So we call these options, and here you've got like the current one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is current option. This is all options. You're basically just like looking for the index of that.
Yeah.
So you got the options. You cannot do like index of, but I think at least one thing you can do. I can't remember. I think you can sort of like get it
Oh,
by
get it by index.
um,
Yeah. But we
get
were looking for
get
the
it by
index.
index. Yeah. So we're actually looking for the index. So that's not gonna be helpful. So let's sort of like convert this, split this
Okay.
up to
An array. Yeah.
an array. Let's sort of grabbing the from there. We can just keep that one
Mm-hmm.
because that could be null. So now we can do
Index of. Yeah.
options to index of current option. All right. Yeah, we would undo the null case because that could be null.
Could be null, yeah.
Yeah, but then the next index we're looking for, the next index is basically, index plus one.
Yeah.
We could guard this for sure, so it doesn't go out of range. But now that we've got like the next index, we could do. Then I've got all the options. Just give me the next option from there, and grab me the ID of
So
the
now we
next
can,
option.
yeah, well, now we can query and then do the focus.
Yes. So that's kind of like, this is like everything we have to sort of like go through. Let's say the next ID is here. Here, next ID means next option.id.
Yeah.
And there we have it. So we've got like everything we need to do there. We need to. One thing we need to do here is set that into the context. So it's actually clear. Because am I missing something here, or did I skip a step?
It could be undefined, yeah. Could be undefined here, because if the current doesn't exist and the first option element is not there, then this is going to be undefined.
Yeah, but here we've got here, I say if next ID, but it asks that variable is used before it's been assigned. So there's definitely like a branch. Yeah, I believe it's because of that as well, right? So
let's see if the error goes away. Yeah, it's that branch.
Yeah, it's that branch. So I think a couple of JavaScript fixes here and there. We guess one thing I like to do though is to create a collection of utilities for all of this, like get by, query selector, get element by ID, so that the code doesn't look too weird. Because if we keep going on and on this way, and we get into previous options, we need basically same methods from the next option and previous option as well. So we're going to have to do that combination. But let's sort of like put an end to the live stream at this point, and then we'll come back again.
The previous one is just going to be the opposite, right? It's going to be
it's going to be exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet. I think this was like super cool. We saw like how we can utilize state machines to basically model what should happen, right? And the should is like super important because we're not explicitly saying what's going to happen. We just define what should happen, right? That is the declarative approach that the state machines are using. And by using that declarative approach, we're able to do this without using a framework. Because frameworks, when we're using a framework, we're like exactly saying, yeah, this is how this is gonna do, right? Even though the framework itself is could be like declarative, still you're very specific about certain things. But in this way, we got it working without any frameworks because we just used state machines, which are declarative.
Exactly, man.
Yeah. So, for example, if we wanted to bring this into a different framework, we just need to do what? Like maybe we can like add like an additional layer above this that can use the framework specific functions, right? So if we're talking about React, it's going to use the React API. Otherwise, I don't know, some other framework. So we can totally achieve that, right? Yeah, awesome. All right, so I guess we're done for this episode. The next one is, of course, going to be Friday because we are watching Design System Fridays. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. I think we learned something pretty cool. I think we built something like we're on the way to basically do the select component and just bring it to Chakra.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a bit of a long road, but between now and next week, I think we can definitely achieve a lot because we made lots of progress today.
Yeah.
All
Awesome.
right.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
See you all. Bye.